Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are so glad that you made it for the Advancing Family-Centered Coaching eCourse release. And we definitely want to hear from you. So if you would, we would greatly appreciate it if you would enter your name in the chat and where you're located. We'd also like to know if you've used Community Action Academy before. And if so, what resources or courses, have been helpful to you? That feedback is most appreciated, and we would love to hear from you. We generally start by centering ourselves in the, we have our practice transformation team. Let me introduce ourselves. The practice transformation, we have Tiffany Marley, who is our vice president for practice transformation. We have Courtney Collar, who is our project director for instructional design and technology. Myself, I'm Lily Seals, the director of practice transformation. Laura Griffin, who is our host, is our program associate for practice transformation. We have Jeannie Chaffin, who's a special advisor to the partnership. And we have Amy Roberts, who is our program associate, also with the practice transformation team. We also have a new addition to our practice transformation team, and that is Gabriel Smith. All right, now we're going to center ourselves in the promise of community action. And if you would, whether you're in the office or at your home, if you would recite this with us. The promise of community action. Community action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. We care about the entire community, and we are dedicated to helping people help themselves and each other. All right. In support of the partnership's mission to ensure the causes and conditions of poverty are effectively addressed and to strengthen, promote, represent, and serve the Community Action Network, the partnership's training and technical assistance team supports agencies in bringing their best selves to their customers and to their communities to achieve maximum impact. We believe that because poverty is complex and always changing, it also implies that the approaches and practices that our agencies engage in are also always changing and are ever evolving to meet those needs. So as a partnership, we have the opportunity to facilitate several initiatives that are tied to the practice transformation focus. The mothership of our initiatives is the Learning Communities Resource Center, which is funded by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Administration for Children and Families, Office of Community Services. The Learning Communities Resource Center is the learning hub within the Community Services Block Grant, or CSBG, network to support the identification, adaptation, and implementation of innovative and evidence-informed services and strategies to improve results based on individual, family, and community level outcomes for the CSBG network. How do we do this? Our approach. I think we can go back a slide. There we go. So our approach, we do this through peer-centered learning, community groups, and communities of practice focused on evidence-based and evidence-informed practices that work. Curriculum design aimed to shift organizational mindsets and transform anti-poverty practice through subject matter experts and their organizations who are leaders in the human services sector, and development, curation, and dissemination of resources informed by the learning and experimentation in respective learning cohorts. And you may have joined us last week where we did our practice transformation resource tour with some of those resources. I am now going to turn it over to Jeannie Chaffin, who will talk about another one of our initiatives, Whole Family Approach.
Thank you, Lily. I was looking through the chat here and I'm seeing that we have a number of folks who have put in the chat who I recognize as being agencies that have been on a whole family approach journey and some agencies that are just starting. We have some folks who are whole family approach coaches, so they know a little bit about whole family. And we've also got some folks who maybe are financial empowerment or financial literacy coaches. So we've got a lot of different kinds of folks who are on the call. And before we sort of dive into a new coaching tool that the partnership has developed as part of the Learning Community Resource Center and the practice transformation work, we just wanted to do a little bit of level setting around the whole family approach, because that's really what led the partnership to develop these tools for coaching. As we started, I don't know, it was probably in 2015, supporting agencies in shifting to a whole family approach, or a 2-gen approach. Some people might call it a 2-generation approach. It's really multi-gen in many ways, and that's why we use the whole family approach term in community action. But it's sort of been a process. When we started out in around 2015, the partnership was facilitating the Rural Impact Initiative, which was a pilot program that came out of the Obama administration to think about 2-gen and kind of pilot 2-gen whole family work in rural places. And there were 10 entities that the partnership and another group supported in their sort of shift to a whole family approach. At that time, there were a couple of community action agencies that were really pioneers. CAP Tulsa and Garrett County in Maryland had been really piloting and testing out 2-gen whole family approaches. And we were trying to sort of think about how to expand that. And that led to some work that the partnership did around bundling services and service integration, which are sort of core components of a whole family approach. To serve parents and children better, you really need to have an integrated, coordinated approach. And so we did a lot of work there. And then more recently, in the last couple of years, we've had a number of learning community groups and communities of practice that have really built out some learning and some knowledge and experience in shifting to a whole family approach from a community action perspective. Let's look at the next slide, please. So we've got now, I'd say, a number of statewide efforts, Virginia and Maryland, some work in Maine where the community action agencies in those states, New Hampshire, have really invested in learning together, and the partnership has supported them. We've got federal investments, obviously, through the Learning Community Resource Center. We've had a number of private foundations, the Kresge Foundation and the Annie Casey Foundation, that have helped develop some of the learning and led us to one of the tools that we're going to talk about today in particular. But there's really just a lot of work that's been done, and a lot of that is on the partnership's website, and we'll kind of point you to that. And it really all centers on thinking about how an agency shifts from just providing child-focused services or perhaps parent-focused services to really serving the whole family. Let's look at the next slide, which just kind of shows the current communities of practice that we have. There's a cohort in Virginia of 6 community action agencies, and I think I've seen a few of them on the line today in the chat, and also a regional whole family approach that's funded through a private foundation, and also the state of Minnesota is helping with that project. And you can see up there all those community action agencies in Minnesota that are part of that regional cohort, and are also over in Alaska. The Tanana Chiefs Conference is a part of our regional whole family approach, so that's really nice. And then a new cohort that we've launched, which isn't exclusively whole family, but may very well have some elements that overlap with whole family: racial equity, customer voice, collective impact, is an impact COP that's being funded by Kresge in a few states. So there's a lot of work going on. So those of you, many of you joining us today, you're going to get the benefit of a lot of this learning that's gone on over the last couple of years, and some tools that have been created to, as we've gone on this learning journey to shift to whole family. What do community action agencies need to do that? So let's talk a little bit more about whole family approach. And we want to make sure that before we talk about coaching and tools to help train people in coaching, that we kind of have a shared understanding of the whole family approach. And really, we want to always remember that the whole family approach is it's a vehicle to get us to breaking the cycle of intergenerational poverty. So that's really at its simplest form, is serving parents, serving children, so that we can break that cycle. They can all fulfill their fullest potential and really fulfill their dreams. And so it's easy to get caught up in 2gen or whole family and get caught up in the service or the approach. But we want to always come back to the North Star is really social and economic mobility. And that may mean different things in different agencies and different organizations, but part of sort of figuring out your whole family approach is figuring out what that means. It's really, what is family success? What does social and economic mobility mean? But that's sort of what we're pointed to and what we're trying to achieve. Maybe if you could just go over a couple more slides, please. Maybe to the next one. Yeah. So our whole family approach is really comes at it from the lens, from the philosophy that everyone has the potential to grow and change, and everyone can build capacity, and that really what we want to do with our practice, whether it's our coaching practice or other approaches that we are embedding in our whole family strategy, it's really about building capacity, building capabilities, and having a growth mindset. Really figuring out what can we do, how can we create systems and practices that will support folks. A whole family approach needs to be integrated. As I said earlier, it's not, it can't be just one service. It can't be just employment, right? Families need different things at different times. And there, as we all know, there's really a lot of complexity here, and you have to meet families where they are. So you really need to have an integrated approach to what you're doing with parents and children. It's got to be high quality. You can't coordinate or believe that mediocre services are going to really help people get to social and economic mobility. It's got to be high quality. There has to be a real intention to support parents and children at the same time. So we could probably all think about programs in our agencies that support parents and support children, but are they doing that at the same time, the same family getting support, getting integrated services, getting just what they need at the right time to help them move and improve both parent and child social and economic well-being, to create that legacy of family well-being that will pass from one generation to the next. So really breaking that cycle of poverty, and that takes time, and it really takes a whole different approach than we've ever had before in many ways. So some of the elements that it's worth sort of really thinking about, we call these characteristics or components of a whole family. A whole family approach is not a checklist. There's not a recipe, which is always makes things a little challenging, right? It needs to be really structured to meet the needs in your community and the needs of your family. But there are some hallmarks or some characteristics that we can kind of make sure that we're paying attention to. And the first one is really centering on families, and really not just saying, but really making a commitment to come alongside families and not doing for them, but doing with them, really appreciating that they are experts in their journey and their lives. And we really need to be co-designing our approaches and our practices with them. And we've seen in the practice transformation work and in the learning community work that when agencies deeply listen and come with a real intention of designing alongside families, they're much more successful. So centering on families is very important. I've already mentioned integrated services a couple of times, but services need to be integrated, and they have to be of an intensity that they're going to help families make the changes that they want to make. A lot of light touch services, a lot of crisis services integrated together are probably not going to move a family to social and economic mobility. We really need to pay attention to removing barriers, and those may be barriers to access. They may be barriers to ongoing participation. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really excited about some of the changes that were just embedded into the American Rescue Plan, where families are going to get additional cash, because imagine how much easier it might be to going for a mom or parent to go and get training or get their skills, kind of get some upskilling when they have that little bit of cash to support their family. I mean, it's just going to really do a lot, I think, in our whole family work to help families along their journey. And we're going to be there to help families to take what is happening in this short term and make that into something really long term. I'm going to skip coaching for a minute. I'm going to come back to that and speak a minute about partnering. So partnering is really important because we know families, have lots of strengths, and there are barriers and challenges, and it may be mental health, it may be housing, it may be transportation, it might be childcare, it can be many different things, and no one organization can address all of those domains. Even community action agencies, with all that we do, we cannot address all of those domains. So we really have to partner. And again, some of the best 2-gen whole family approaches in the country are ones that have really robust partnerships. Maybe the Community Action Head Start has co-located a class on a college campus. And so that makes it much easier through that partnership to serve parents and children together. Maybe there's a behavioral health entity in the community that the agency is contracting with to provide really robust behavioral health services, peer support groups, family support groups. There's lots of different ways this partnering can look, but one thing we know is that you have to partner, and that is an important piece of whole family. And then centering in equity, particularly in racial equity. We know that there are systemic barriers that prevent families. This isn't just about families and individuals, it's about systems and institutions, and really sort of coming with an intention to pay attention to the barriers that may be created by structural inequities, and then how do we remove those and address those. And here's where we could go back up and talk about when we listen to families, when we're centering in families, we need to really be listening to what inequities might be showing up, or what systemic institutional racism might be showing up in our communities that may be impacting our families, our parents, our children. A unique characteristic of the whole family approach is really measuring child, parent, and family outcomes. So if you think about some of our workforce programs, we often do measure what's happening with the worker. Are they getting a job? Are they getting trained? We don't necessarily think about that worker as a parent, and also look at what's happening with their children, what's happening with the family. And so what we're doing when we're doing a whole family approach is really looking at our outcomes, our results, our impact for not just the parent as a worker, or not just the child as a Head Start participant, but the child, the parent, and the family. And what progress are they all making together? This sounds simple, but we all know in community action, where we have multiple data systems and folks may be in a Head Start data system, and they may be over in a workforce data system, that there's somehow we have to attend to bringing all that information together. And we have to, this is sort of a good segue to coaching, we have to have a coach who is sort of working to facilitate and integrate and provide the support the family needs to really provide this holistic intervention that we're talking about. You might say, well, Jeannie, we have case managers. We've had case managers for years, and we do a strengths-based approach. You know, how is this any different? And I would say that, you know, if you do the coaching training that we're going to talk about in a minute, you'll see that coaching is a fluid approach. Sometimes you are a case manager where you're really kind of directing people and helping them work through a goal. Sometimes you're a navigator where you're making referrals. And sometimes you're a coach where you're really working to ask questions and help people build their own capacity so that over time they can solve their own challenges and issues and really build capacity in their children. So coaching is a little bit of a different mindset for staff and for our customers and for supervisors. It's a key piece of a whole family approach. And as we've been working with, you know, I'd say probably 100 community action agencies since 2015, you know, we've really seen that helping them sort of build out a coaching framework and deepening their coaching practice can be a really good step in a whole family approach journey and shifting the organization. So with that, I'll just mention that, you know, we've sort of outlined in the next slide that there are some building blocks to shifting to a whole family approach for community action agencies. And if you hop on to the partnership's website, you'll see all kinds of tools for every one of these building blocks. And, you know, we're going to dive deeply into the tools today for coaching, but there are webinars and tools on attending to organizational culture change, because if you're going to shift to a whole family approach, you've got to sort of understand change. I've talked a little bit about engaging family voices, understanding systems, securing funding and other resources, and building leadership. There's a number of things that you need to do. And so, you know, I really encourage you, if you're just starting out on your journey, to look at the partnership's website, look at all the yummy stuff that the partnership has curated and served up on their website that will help you in addition to coaching if you're interested in moving to a whole family approach. So one last thing I want to say is that you know, many of the things that I just talked about in a whole family approach, like service integration, you know, equity, listening, customer voice, and coaching, they don't just apply to a whole family approach. So a lot of these building blocks you can take and add on to other programs that you're doing or other approaches. So don't kind of miss that that potential, because I think there's a lot of potential to embed many of these concepts in other work that you're doing. And if you're on the call today and you're like, oh, Jeannie, you know, we haven't really got to a place where we're ready to shift or embrace to a whole family approach, but we're really working on integrating services for folks returning from prison, or we're really working on integrating services for homeless folks who are homeless, and we'd like to have a better practice with these populations. Coaching is still a great thing to embed in any of those kinds of efforts or with any of those populations. So I really encourage you to look at the resources that we're going to talk in a minute that Courtney's going to highlight around coaching, and she'll talk a little bit more about coaching and what it is, and then we'll have some time for questions. So I think with that, I'm going to hand it over to Courtney Kohler. Thanks.
All right, well, thank you, Jeannie. That information on whole family approach sets a good foundation for kind of where we're headed with this eCourse and how it might be beneficial to community action agencies throughout the network. So first, I just want to talk a little bit about Community Action Academy, which is where this eCourse on family-centered coaching is housed. We do have, within the realm of partnership training and technical assistance, we have our online learning management system, which we call Community Action Academy. It is built on a Moodle platform. So Moodle is kind of the learning management system that it's built upon. And really the whole purpose of this platform is to offer e-learning that's on demand. People can access at any time and do kind of at their own pace, as well as we also do various learning community groups through Community Action Academy. So I saw that a few people said that they have used Community Action Academy for some of the either COP work, community of practice, or the learning community groups. So that's great. So the peer sharing aspect of it is kind of where we bring through those learning cohorts. And with Community Action Academy, or built on Moodle, we, like I said, we offer these on-demand courses. Within those, there are various videos and resources, peer engagement and virtual networking. There's that virtual space for learning community groups, and best of all, it's free and it's accessible to the entire Community Action Network. So that can be, I'll show everyone here in just a moment how you can access your own account and create that. It does require an account, but it's free and easy to do so. So these are some topics you see here on your screen of what is accessible on Community Action Academy. There's actually much more than this, and we're continuing to build out the platform. But what we're going to be focusing on today is the family-centered coaching courses, specifically the Advancing Family-Centered Coaching kind of 201 level course. Some of the other courses you see here that are available, we have some fiscal courses, organizational standards, some around health intersections, as well as Roma, both for community action agency staff, as well as Roma for boards, a series of that. So for those of you who are curious about this and don't have an account yet, you can go to moodle.communityactionpartnership.com to create an account. You can even go there now if you want to kind of follow along, but I'll be doing a demo here in just a moment to go through that as well. So you can go to the next slide, and I'll talk a little bit about family-centered coaching, and then of course I'll pull out some topics when we're doing the live demo. But this family-centered coaching is actually was originally developed through the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. So it was this, there's lots of different similar, kind of trainings or resources or approaches. But family-centered coaching really kind of encompasses and has this fluid approach like Jeannie was talking about. So, like Jeannie also mentioned, there's other strengths-based family development type curriculums, and you'll see that there's definitely some similarities. But we've really kind of bought into this family-centered coaching approach, and it's this set of strategies, tools, and resources to reinvent how human service organizations engage families that are experiencing poverty. And so the Prosperity Agenda, which is based out of Seattle, Washington, kind of houses the toolkit and resources for this. It is an open source training and toolkit for people to access and utilize. And so that's what this course was built off of. And it's really rooted in this understanding of the institutional forces that prevent families from moving forward. And this idea of coaching equips staff with mindset, tools, and the skills that to use so that they can work with families holistically, even when programs within which they work usually might address only a single goal. So it kind of helps to bring all of these things together and address really where families are at and get them to where they want to be, not just kind of following agency goals as well. So on to the next slide. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Give me the presenter access, and I'll walk everyone through this so you can get a sense of what it is, and then hopefully check out Just get this pulled up. Seems to be loading. Sorry for the delay. Okay, here we go. So Community Action Academy, we do have, I'll go ahead and show you, like I said, moodle.communityactionpartnership.com is where you'll go to access this. And this is the screen that you'll be greeted by. And so if you already have login information, you can simply log in. But if it's your first time here, you just go here to create a new account. And of course, since I'm already logged in, it told me that. I was going to show you the, there we go. All right, so create a new account. It just has very basic fields here. You create a username and password. You go through with a few different basic information. We do ask for your organization and state, and then you simply create your new account. So like I said, it's free to create an account. We do, there is a confirmation email that'll come to your email, so you want to make sure that whatever email you use here, you do have accessible to you to go ahead and confirm that account, and then you'll have access. So you can have access within minutes. So I will go back up to the login page here and go ahead and log in. And I am going to, I had this already set up, but I'm going to show you the student view. So this is what you all will see. And so once you get to this home page, you can collapse and expand this menu over here by clicking these three lines. So if you want to exchange your view, you will have much more information over here once you get more engaged in Community Action Academy, because your courses will be listed here. So if you're a new user, you might not see much over here. But what you'll do, you'll of course see our site news here. So we post some various announcements. You can go to your dashboard and view your courses that you're already enrolled in once you get some in your account. And then we also have these course categories over here, which is where, especially if you're a new user, where you'll want to go to browse various courses. So feel free to browse any of them that are open. Some of them are closed to specific learning cohorts or communities of practice. So if you do get a message that says that you can't access this course, that might be why. But these family-centered coaching courses are all available to the Community Action Network. So if you're interested in just taking more of a basic short course on family-centered coaching, you can do the what we call the 101 level course on family-centered coaching. That is available right here. And then we also have the Advancing Family-Centered Coaching eCourse. So I'll go ahead and click into this. Because I'm already enrolled in the course, it brings me right into it. But as someone is first enrolling in it, there will be a button that says Enroll Me. So you'll just have to self-enroll in the course. So there might be one more step in between where you have to click a button. So basically all of our courses are formatted like this, but this one kind of goes through an introduction of family-centered coaching, recognizes the prosperity agenda as they house the toolkit for this, and just goes over what you can essentially expect from this course. This is a longer course to complete, but we have, we know that people don't generally have 6, 8, 10 hours to sit in front of a computer. So what we've done is we have split this into pieces so that you can engage in it as you have time. So this is an on-demand self-paced course, which means that you can enroll in it at any time and you can take it at your own pace. So what you will see as you walk through it, we do have a course introduction. Tiffany Marley, our Vice President for Practice Transformation, does a brief intro. It's a few minutes long to just talk about the topic and the course and kind of the purpose behind launching this information for the network. Then as we go through, you'll see that it's split up into these various, what you call maybe modules. And we do list out how much time it'll take a person, give or take. Everyone's a little bit different, to complete that segment, so that you kind of have an idea once you get started, how much time you might want to set aside or be able to devote. Even though that is said there, you do not have to complete this whole segment all at once. So say you only have 30 minutes or an hour and you want to get in here and you want to start looking at the materials and start into the course, you are welcome to do that. So it saves all of your work, and you can really just go through it at your own pace. So each segment, we do have various learning objectives. So of course, in this first segment, it really looks at understanding the basics of coaching. What does family-centered coaching means? Knowing what it takes to get into that coaching mindset, self-awareness as a coach, and then understanding those roles that a coach can play and appropriate times to use those roles. And so this is kind of an important factor in family-centered coaching, is that you know, like Jeannie mentioned, it is very fluid. And so whenever we're looking at coaching, you know, some people might think, well, some of the clients, if you're a frontline staff, some of the clients, you know, I work with just aren't quite there yet as far as coaching goes. And they really do need some of that case management interaction still. And there's going to be times that even whenever you start to coach clients and customers, that at some point you might have to, you know, be in more of a case manager role. You might have to go into more of a coach role, or you might have to go into more of referring out to specialized services that your agency doesn't provide. And so one of the things I love about family-centered coaching is that it really does guide you to focus in on when you should use these various approaches and learning how to recognize that. So that's something that this first part will go through. And as you can see, there's various, you know, different types of learning and media within this, knowing that there's various learners out there. There's these little link buttons are going to link out to the Coaching Up Close YouTube series by the Prosperity Agenda. And we try to make sure that we let you know how long those different segments will take. The whole toolkit can be downloaded here in a PDF. So if you're the type of learner where you want to print this out and be able to make notes and highlight things, you can do that at the beginning, and we notate what pages to read. But then there's also, as you get further down here, I'll show you an example where we do go into, those are more videos, we do go into some various reading, so these different interview tools and reading from the Prosperity Agenda. I'll open this up in a new tab. So they have segments on their website that go deeper into some of these topics that are tied to the toolkit. And some of these segments have been updated from the toolkit, so we link directly to those when that is the case. So that's just an example of how you can link out to those. We also have these various scenarios because part of, you know, learning, especially in the eCourse format, is going to be making sure that you're still kind of having that experiential learning. And so there's this parent coaching scenario here, and I'll go ahead and show you that. We'll go back to, you can go back to the last page you saw. So again, if you only get partway through this scenario, it'll save your work. You'll be able to go right back to where you were. But for the purposes of today, I'll just go to the beginning. So here, you know, the scenario, it describes, you know what a coach or frontline staff might experience. And then you go and you can respond to that experience. So you're actually kind of putting yourself in the shoes of someone who might experience some of these scenarios. And then once you kind of type your response in here, then it continues on to the scenario. And so you kind of continue in this back and forth of almost a role-playing atmosphere within the eCourse. So there's various lessons like that. And then I'll go back to the course, and we do have a segment here that starts talking about self-awareness. And so an example of where we require certain pieces of the course, but then we recommend further learning. We have these various pieces on equity, implicit bias, making sure that we're thinking about othering and belonging. So there is this piece that is required around this implicit bias module series, but then we do recommend that you complete these other pieces. However, they're not required for the course completion certificate, which I'll show you here in a moment. So towards the end, you are able to receive a course completion certificate as long as you've completed those different requirements of the course. So again, there's various videos, there's tools that you can actually access and print out and use with families. There are some pieces in here where we do ask you to use the tool and then come back and report back on how that went. There's again here with your different approaches and roles, when to engage in case management, when to engage in kind of a readiness assessment, and as well as goal setting and practice. And then we do have some various quizzes in here. We try not to make it overwhelming. It's not, a major test, but something just to test the learning and make sure that it's sinking in. So just these mini quizzes in here to kind of round out and complete that module. So very similar here. I'm not going to go through all of these because hopefully you all will access those, but this is one of those lessons where you'll go into that again, and I'll show you kind of what this looks like. But what it asks you to do, it asks you to review certain material, and then you can go through and kind of report out on using these various situational coaching skills. So kind of brings in that experience, testing some things out, reflecting and reporting back on it, as well as learning through videos and reading in the course as well. So I'll go ahead and show towards the end here, there's different forums that you can also engage in. We've already had some people starting to engage, so that's wonderful. Then down here, we do have some different readiness assessments that look at your agency readiness to move to family-centered coaching. And so we do recommend that this is done as an agency activity, not necessarily just one person taking that, so that it might involve a team of people getting together to do this. And we do ask that you submit the completed assessments with us. There's also a kind of an optional activity here that if you want to take it a little bit further, start working on your whole family approach design plan to look at all of those building blocks together, then you can submit those materials for us as well. We're happy to take a look at that. So this is the course completion certificate here. It basically kind of outlines what you would need to complete. So there's kind of a key part in each module that you do have to complete that encompasses that learning to make sure that you haven't just clicked through the course, and then you can print and file that away or share it with your agency and keep that as a course completion certificate for this course. And then of course we have some information and contact resources towards the end as well. So that's essentially the course, and a couple questions that we often get about this is who should take this course? And I think that of course frontline staff, those working directly with customers and families, are going to be most applicable to take a course like this. But even if you don't have long-term interactions with customers and families, I think that there's a lot of rich and good information in here about even just having either short or more kind of sporadic interactions with people, even if you're not working with the same customers over time. And then also supervisors. So if you're looking to have your team, implement family-centered coaching a little bit more broadly, then that can be something that you can do as an organization. to take this course. Supervisors can take the course to work on implementing that family-centered coaching approach. And then, you know, while this is kind of set up for individuals to take the course and be able to have that course completion certificate as they complete it, it's something that you could do as a group at your agency where you start to, you know, maybe do some lunch and learns and have a facilitator at your agency, maybe a supervisor or a lead staff that can kind of walk people through, show the videos, print out the resources, and kind of do it as a group. So there are different options on how you can approach this at your organization. And with that, I think we'll get some feedback from you all. So how do you think your agency can use the family-centered coaching e-courses that you just saw? So you can feel free to type your response in the chat. I do see a question that I will address that's in the chat. So should we do the 101 course before the 201, or is it possible to start with the 201? So I think it's really your preference, but you can definitely jump right into the 201 course because the first module of it, where it goes into coaching basics, will cover a segment, a good chunk actually, of what's in the 101 course. So if you're wanting to kind of get that more comprehensive knowledge and experience with family-centered coaching, I would direct you to the 201 course. You won't lose out on any information necessarily. But if you just don't, you know, feel like you have time for the 201 course at this time and want to start with something a little bit smaller, then you can go to the 101. But it would be totally doable to jump into the 201. And someone else asked, how long is the 101? So the 101, I mean, you could complete that one within probably hour and a half. So it's quite a bit shorter. All right, it's great to see all the comments in the chat.
So we do have another question. It says, do you have recommendations if we want all of our coaches to move through the training together? We have a team of coaches that we would like to have trained, and ideally we want them to have discussions about the course as they go as a team.
Yeah, so I think that what you could probably do a couple of different approaches with this. You know, I think that you could get together as a group and, you know, have a facilitator or a lead staff that is, you know, playing the videos, maybe for a lunch and learn or designated training times, printing out those resources, and having those different discussions. Or if you wanted to have individuals go through each segment of the course on their own, and then bring people together in between those various segments of the course to have discussions about it, talk about what they learned, ask questions, how would this really look in real life, practicing it in our organization with our families. So I think there's a couple of different ways you can do it. And then that way, if you did have people doing it individually and then coming together for discussions, then people would still be, if the course completion certificate is important to people, people's kind of progress would still be logged to be able to access that at the end.
Looks like we're getting a lot of feedback saying that everyone loves the idea of doing this together, group learning. We're not seeing any other questions. We can
Someone
move on.
who joined late wanted us to repeat what is the time frame for completing the class and what is the cost?
So the cost, it is free. So with Community Action Academy, it's free to create an account, and you just have to go through a simple form to enter in your information. And as far as timeline goes, it is an on-demand self-paced course. So you can start it whenever you'd like, and then you can pace through it as it works for you.
We also have a question if there's any plan for ACEs training. That's adverse childhood experiences training.
Yeah, so I know that we've talked about, we are going to be launching a health intersections eCourse in the near future, which ties into that. And we've also talked about some resources around trauma-informed care, which I know also ties into that. So there might, we'll definitely keep that in mind if that's of interest. And I think there will be some connected e-courses coming out in the near future.
How often are new courses being added?
So it kind of varies depending on the topic. We are kind of ramping up our efforts around releasing e-courses more often. So within the next couple of months, we should have more information out about what people can expect as far as some of the topics and timeline of e-courses that are being released.
Another one I'm seeing is it best for the agency to have a whole family approach before using the coaching course?
So my answer, and the rest of the team can jump in too. I think that this course can definitely be taken before an agency were to, really dive into the entire whole family approach, because it is a piece of it. And so this is something kind of like what Jeannie was saying earlier. If you're starting to integrate services in a certain way, or you want to shift more to a coaching mindset, those are all things that are going to help you build up to a whole family approach. So it can really be beneficial at any point of the process.
Do have another question that asks if we have any e-courses that have CEUs available.
So not at this time. We just do the course completion certificates, but that is something we've looked into for specific topics. So that's our answer for now. But of course, we'll definitely let the network know if we start to have more specific courses with CEUs that are tagged to it.
Great. Another question is, how is this course different from motivational interviewing?
So I would say that the coaching approach is a little bit more of a broader approach that kind of encompasses, it actually encompasses case management. It encompasses, the kind of an overall approach of how to work with families. It is similar in the way that, motivational interviewing is really kind of starting with where the person is at and helping them to, bring out their own motivations and, set their own goals and things like that. So there is a piece of that involved, but I would say family-centered coaching is a little bit broader than motivational interviewing.
Great. I think that's all the questions we have for now.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you, Laura. And thank you, Courtney, for going through the course and answering questions. So just want to highlight some events and resources before we officially wrap up. So we have our Equity Summit coming up on April 20th to 21st. So definitely take a look at the agenda We have an amazing lineup of speakers and topics ranging from health to women in poverty, Indigenous rights. The registration is now available, so we will be sure to share the link with you. And note there is a cost for this event, but we also have another upcoming event, which is the Health Intersections Convening. So for the individual who had a question about ACEs, this would be a good event to attend. So this event is free. So this will be May 13th from 12 to 3 Eastern time. So keep a lookout for more information on that as well. And then a few additional whole family approach resources, which I believe Lily also put links to in the chat. We had our Whole Family Approach Institute back in December. So there are a lot of resources on that website. We have some presentations, videos, PDFs. So that's a good website to go through for more information on those resources. And then another resource we've been curating is Whole Family Approach Design Briefs. So these agencies have been in past cohorts working on their whole family approach plans for their own organizations and have been successful. And so these design briefs highlight some of their work focused on whole family approach concepts, equity, and trauma-informed approaches. So we will also have more coming soon on the Design Briefs website. So with that, here is our contact information. If you have any questions, and once again, we will be sharing the slides and the recording in a follow-up email, and it will also be on our website. So please stay tuned for upcoming events. You can also share the link for those additional upcoming events in the chat. And with that, thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event. Take care, everyone.